Coming up on Gamers Week podcast. Yeah, and the copy I have is the Wii U version. So, yeah,
that sounds like a hipster thing to say. I played it on the original Wii U.
As he twirls his mustache on his unicycle.
I play mine on the Wii U, see?
He did say he was drinking an IPA.
Yes, he did.
It's non-alcoholic.
That doesn't make it any better.
No, it doesn't.
That's so much worse. Numa, eh. Numa, eh.
Numa, hey. Numa, hey. Numa, hey. Numa, hey.
The fact that you knew that there was a sequel to that song makes me so much prouder of you, sir.
A new Numa song?
Because there was the original, the Maya, and then there was New Numa.
Maya.
You realize all of this is going in, right?
Oh, yeah, no.
Surprise!
Welcome to Gamers Week podcast. Like the name says, we analyze the best, worst, and weirdest headlines of the past week in the video game industry. This is episode 15. Today is Wednesday, March 30th, 2022. My name is Ryan, aka Retro Game Brews, and I will be your host for this evening. And I also have with me the wonderful, fantastic, superfluous, awesome Donnie G Retro and Blue Williams.
Superfluous.
Yeah,
we don't really need to be here, is what you're saying.
I like all that buildup on me, and then you're like, and Blue. Like, what the hell?
Afterthoughts. You're both those things.
So I am also superfluous.
Correct.
Okay.
Extremely.
All right.
Good to know.
Bye.
Yeah, see you later. I'm going to go get that whiskey I wanted.
There you go. All right, so why don't we go ahead and jump into our reviews, reactions, and requests for the week. So first one is from SMB Flurry. The first time taking the leap of faith in Super Castlevania 4 is scary. One of the Bloodstained games has a similar secret bonus area, which I thought was a nice touch. Love Retro, by the way, says, I was never a huge rage quitter, but a friend of mine would throw controllers at his wall when I'd beat him in old school Madden. Ooh. He scared me. I actually let him win to save his wall. I did something similar with my brother.
Really?
He used to punch me in the head if I would beat him in Mortal Kombat.
That's not really similar.
It's kind of similar. It's a rage quit in a way.
So you let him win to save your head?
Correct, not the wall.
So this was really nice of Andy because it wasn't even his wall.
Right, he was thinking about somebody else's wall.
Yeah, you're just thinking about your own head.
I guess I'm not as magnanimous as Andy is. Just looking out for me, myself, and I. Love it. All right, and next from Ben Pieface Miller says, surprise, not really, that no one mentioned Lament of Innocence. That's my absolute favorite, but I recently beat and gained appreciation for the OG on NES, despite having played the first few levels plenty of times as a kid. And of course, he's talking about Castlevania.
Lament of Innocence, that was a PS2 one. I think that was the very first 3D kind of Castlevania.
Besides Castlevania 64?
You know what? I never played Castlevania 64. So if that was 3D, then I am mistaken then.
Yeah. It is 3D, and you should be glad you've never played it.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think I'm going to go back and play that anytime soon, so don't worry.
Oh, I was worried, so thank you for clarifying.
And now it's time for the very important poll.
I think eventually this is just going to get so difficult to make this interesting. Right. We're going to be like episode 100 and doing this in Morse code.
Hey, that's a good idea.
Every Monday on Twitter, we post our VIP, very important poll. If you'd like to participate, follow us on Twitter at GamersWeekPC. So the question for this week is, what's the best series on the Sega Genesis that's not Sonic? Coming in at number 3, Golden Axe, 15.6%. Number 2, Phantasy Star, 22.1%. That's a very good RPG series. Mm-hmm. And standing atop of the mountain with the gold medal, Streets of Rage with 54.6%, with an other at 7.7%. So let's look at some of the answers from the other category. At DestroWad says, if it does not have to be exclusive, Mortal Kombat for me, way before Sonic 2. At Lost Winchester says, Vector Man and Road Rash were top Sega titles, in my opinion. At Cleet Von Maximus says, Buck Rogers. Though not really a series, I always preferred RPGs like this masterpiece from SSI. At Go Hobo Go says, Shining series, Shining Force 1 and 2, and Shining in the Darkness. And at Love's Nurse whispers, Earthworm Jim. Now, I know that Earthworm Jim had 1 and 2. Was there ever a 3? Was there ever a third one for that one?
The Television Amico might be the third one.
I'm just going to ignore that.
They came out on the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, so I'm not really sure if you would call that really a specific Sega Genesis series, but we'll let it slide.
We did not specify exclusive, if you want to be actually about it.
Well, actually.
Yeah.
I'm surprised we didn't get taken over the coals because we called it the Sega Genesis, not Sega Genesis / Mega Drive.
Mega Drive, right. We didn't include that one.
Yeah, this was actually a pretty uneventful poll because not only did we not get radioed over that, nobody, at least that I saw in the replies, was like, well, why didn't you include blah, blah, blah?
Do you think people are getting used to us by now and they're willing to let things slide?
No, I definitely don't. I think you guys just picked really good choices for the answers.
Touche.
I'm going to pat myself on the back for that one.
Yep. Well done.
Hey, we helped.
No, I'm patting myself because I can't pat you.
Oh.
This is a group pat.
A group pat. Blue, what was your pick?
I went with Streets of Rage, like over half of the people. It's a series that continues to be relevant today. And it was fantastic. So I voted for that for the best. But if you want to know what my favorite is, I had to go with Splatterhouse.
Ooh, yeah.
I love Splatterhouse. They're so fun.
Now, help me remember. I think Splatterhouse 1 was on the TurboGrafx 16, and then Splatterhouse 2 and 3 were on the Sega Genesis.
And if you want to get real, actually, Splatterhouse 1 was on the NES, and then it was called like something graffiti. I'm terrible at Japanese pronunciation, so I'm not going to try. And then they went to the TurboGrafx 16 for number 1, and 2 and 3 came out on the Genesis.
Was it really on the NES or was it on the Famicom?
Oh, it was on the Famicom.
Yeah, it was on the Famicom.
Right.
If we're going like super deep diving into actually.
Right. It's like the club sandwiches of actually.
Yeah.
So Ryan, what was your pick for this poll?
I went with Other, and I'm going to go with Shining Force. I think that as far as tactical RPGs, it doesn't get much better than that. Story's really great, and the music is fantastic. I'm choosing that more as my favorite, though.
Okay.
Where I'm going to agree with Blue that Streets of Rage is probably the best series that is strictly Genesis. It's just really, really well done. Played it the other day, actually. I ended up playing Streets of Rage 2, and I will leave the beginning music on. It's so good. So amazingly good.
I still get tingles every time I'm playing, I think Streets of Rage 1. And it's where you can call in the police officers. They can come in and throw the rocket launcher or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's just a certain, I don't know how to describe it, but just the music in that level, it's amazing. It always will continue to be at the top for me as far as choices for video game music. So that was my choice as well, the Streets of Rage series. 1, 2, and 3, hands down. You can't beat them. Even the Streets of Rage 4 that came out last year, I think, was it last year or was it 2020?
Might have been 2020.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm staring at it right now. It's in my collector's case, the Streets of Rage Premium Edition, which I have played, I have streamed. Still, it holds true to the original classic. It's still tough as nails if you want it to be. And yeah, I think they hit it out of the park with the fourth release.
Yes, 2020. I had to make sure.
Okay.
Since we're doing such a actually deep dive, I had to make sure.
Yeah, Streets of Rage is definitely my pick. I've never played Shining Force, although I do have it sitting on my shelf, and hopefully one of these days it'll come out of the backlog.
I will say 2 is probably the better of the 2 that are available there. So if you're going to start with 1, I would start with 2 just to get the full experience. And
That was such a confusing sentence.
Right. You're going to start with 1, start with 2. What? Huh?
Yep.
if you're going to start with one of them,
There you go. Yes.
Well, obviously you have to start with one of them.
I would suggest starting with 2. It's like Lufia. Start with number 2.
Okay. Interesting. What about Breath of Fire? Should you start with number 2 as well, or just not play that entire series?
I liked 1.
Oh, 1 is awful.
Oh.
I mean, I had a walkthrough. I suggest a walkthrough,
there
but
you
I
go.
enjoyed my time with it.
The characters are really boring.
Yep.
The gameplay's okay. Clearly, this was Capcom's first attempt at an RPG, and it shows. But Breath of Fire 2 is fantastic, so they definitely learned from their mistakes, that's for sure.
Sorry, Blue.
For what? He's allowed his opinion.
Right.
I'm proud of you for not saying wrong opinion. So
We're growing.
that's what we call growth, exactly. All right, Blue, why don't we go ahead and thank our awesome patrons?
You got it. We couldn't do what we do without the help of our gorgeous patrons. Here are the generous folks supporting Gamers Week on Patreon. The Wizard of Zardoz, Clayman71, Great Sandman 81, BNT Zilla Guy, Geek With That, Crunchy Kong, Sheriff Snacks, Frank Grande, Producer BTW, Steven Sand, Terry Canair, Ducks in Disguise, Jim and Colleen, Games with Coffee, Davey PGH, the Red Ox PDX family, including Shannon and Luke, Zach Huge Thanks, Random Retro Dude, Princess Kitty Mew Mew, Mega Retro Man, Emo West, Ryebread's #1 fan, and Fruitcake's #1 stan. If you like what you hear today, and we really hope you do, please consider joining us on Patreon. Your support helps cover the cost of producing the show, as well as other cool stuff we'll be doing, like prizes and giveaways. You'll also gain access to our weekly patron-only bonus cast called Gamers Week Uncut, Patrons with Benefits. Visit patreon.com/gamersweek or follow the link in the show notes to learn more.
All right, as you guys know, we did a giveaway here last week for Redox, who of course was on the podcast. She is 100% awesome. She has recently released a CD of Castlevania piano music. And to one of our awesome listeners, we're going to be giving away here today a copy of her CD, which, by the way, if you do want to purchase that, feel free to check out some of the links in the show notes. We will definitely include options to buy that CD. But our big winner that we put together here is Ben Pieface Miller. Congratulations, Ben. We'll be reaching out to you here shortly on Saturday to gather your information and send it your way. So congratulations, Ben. Woo! Woo! Woohoo! And again, big thank you to Redox. You are awesome. We really appreciate you being on the show, and we are always happy to promote some of the really cool stuff that you're doing. So thanks again. All right, so our headline segment is proudly sponsored by the Retro Game Club podcast. It's a fantastic family-friendly retro gaming podcast. In each episode, Rob and Hugh pick 2 games to play and discuss, as well as news, interviews, and other topics. Right now, they want to hear your memories of gaming magazines in the 80s and 90s. Email them at email@retrogameclub.net or follow the link in the show notes.
Boy, do I have a lot of memories of those.
I was going to say, you are the guy. You need to email them, sir.
Yeah,
I do.
try to keep it under 4,000 words.
Like, oh my God, you guys want to know about this? Oh my God.
Whoa.
That's the level of excitement I have about 80s.
It's tough to convey that exact tone in an email, but I'm sure you can do it.
You know what? It's alternating caps in lowercase.
Oh,
I think.
God.
Is that how you do it? That's the correct methodology.
From The Verge, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel is delayed to spring 2023. The still unnamed sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild has been delayed to spring 2023, producer Eiji Aonuma announced today in a video update. Roll with it. The game had The game had previously been set for a 2022 release window. In order to make this game's experience something special, the entire development team is working diligently on this game. So please wait a while longer, Aonuma said. Nintendo first revealed that it was working on a sequel to Breath of the Wild in 2019. According to Aonuma, we will see gameplay extend up into the skies of the vast open world iteration of Hyrule, along with new gameplay elements and encounters. Much of the information about Breath of the Wild 2 is still being kept secret, including its actual title. Nintendo still refers to the game as the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. With the game now set to release next year, though, there's still plenty of time for Nintendo to reveal more about Link's next big adventure. I can't say that I'm excited for it since I still have yet to play the first game, Breath of the Wild. I know, blasphemy. And we have it. We have it sitting. I have it. I can pop it into my Switch and play it. I need somebody to really kind of put some kind of electrode on me. And when I'm thinking of, wait, hold up now. When I'm thinking of investing any more time into Warzone, they can just okay, all right. I'll just go play this game. Let me try this one out. But let me see who's playing Warzone. Okay, all right. No more Warzone.
I think actually you do need that. Every time that I log into Discord, I see this little notice over on the side. It's like Donnie G playing Warzone.
And I've been playing that damn game for well over 2 years now. It tells you something about the type of game it is. I mean, it keeps people coming back, but we're not going to go into that. We're talking about Breath of the Wild. So,
yes.
Are you guys excited?
I, for one, am relieved, to be honest. I know there are a lot of people who are probably disappointed, but I am relieved because this has been a super busy year. I am drowning in new releases that I have to play. And then also, confession time, I didn't finish the first one. I know. I think I put 60 hours into it and then got distracted by something else and never actually finished it. I cleared the map. That was my main goal, to start off with, clear the entire map. And then once I'd done that, my interest waned a little bit. I didn't really feel you've played enough Zelda games. You kind of know how the game's going to end anyway.
Right. So I guess the story wasn't that good enough to keep you entrenched?
To be honest, I didn't care much about the story. No, I just wanted to run around and cause trouble and ride bears and find apples and do the shrines and.
Out of context, that statement would have been awesome.
Right?
So I had a blast with that game. I really did. And I should go back and finish it, but I haven't touched it in probably 3 years. So you know how it is when you have been away from a game that long and you have to try to pick it up and refigure out what you're doing. So the longer I stay away from it, the more difficult it is for me to get back into it. But yeah, now I have a whole nother year to figure it out.
Right.
Well, I will say with most Zelda games, you don't need to play any of the earlier iterations in order to understand to play the game the way it is for the most part. Mm-hmm. And the fact, though, that they're calling it the sequel to does make me worry a little bit about that. But I highly doubt it. Nintendo is very much under the mindset of accessibility to players. Yeah. So I don't think that they would create a Zelda that would confuse players by not knowing some of the story from the previous ones.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have, flashbacks and all that kind of stuff. And
right.
This was a crazy successful game. I don't know off the top of my head how many copies it sold, but I know a crap ton of people played Breath of the Wild. So I don't think it's that much of a problem.
Yeah, and the copy I have is the Wii U version. So yeah,
that sounds like a hipster thing to say. I played it on the original Wii U.
As he twirls his mustache on his unicycle.
I play mine on the Wii U, see?
He did say he was drinking an IPA.
Yes, he did.
It's non-alcoholic.
That doesn't make it any better.
No, it doesn't.
That's so much worse.
Okay, next up from PC Gamer, Dead by Daylight has 50 million players and now a board game adaptation. Dead by Daylight is one of those perennially popular games that rarely seems to make the news, probably because developer Behavior Interactive got it more or less right, and players love the game as it is. Nevertheless, it remains constantly active with new DLC and promotions, and now, roughly 8 years after its initial release, has hit the considerable milestone of 50 million players. The news of 50 million players came alongside the launch of a Kickstarter for a board game version of Dead by Daylight. After only a few days, it has already, unsurprisingly, sailed past its initial target of £190,000 and currently sits on just over £263,000. The board game is being created by Level 99 Games, a company that's delivered dozens of past Kickstarter projects. It's a 3 to 5 player asymmetrical experience patterned after Dead by Daylight's core mechanics. This means that the survivors will have challenges like turning generators back on, while a killer prowls around and tries to, well, kill them. Dead by Daylight wasn't a smash hit out of the gate, but has quietly grown over the years, and it now looms large over the competition.
So, Donnie, as somebody who has played this quite a bit, how do you feel about a board game adaptation of the game?
I am excited to hear about this board game adaptation, and I can almost guarantee you that I will probably pick this up at some point and play this with my family. I haven't.
This is good, clean fun for the whole family.
Right. It's a game that the entire family can enjoy. You can sit at the table and chase your kids around and murder them.
Yep. Hang them up on hooks. It's good stuff.
Exactly.
I'm just envisioning hooks are out there, and like there's a little plastic piece that connects to the hook and swing it back and forth.
I honestly, I haven't touched Dead by Daylight in probably over a year. They still keep pumping out DLC, new maps, new characters, new villains, new killers, new survivors. Storylines are still there and solid. I can't tell you why I stopped.
Because Warzone came out?
Yeah. Okay, you got a point. I reached level 1 with Killer and Survivor, and I think after that, there's really nothing more for me to do, and to try and grind to keep that number 1 tier status. It just didn't sit well with me. So I was like, I might go back and play it every once in a while, especially if we can get a couple people to get on and play it with Killer versus Survivors and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been a while since I've touched it.
And this is such a weird thing that seems to be happening lately is board game adaptations of video games.
Right.
It's a strange combination to me because they're so different.
Yes.
I wouldn't see myself, even if I saw a board game that was based off of, no, okay, I was just going to say if it was based off of Hollow Knight, I probably wouldn't get it, but I would totally get it.
Way to catch yourself.
I know.
Right.
You know what I mean, though? There's such a different experience. It seems like it couldn't possibly translate very well, but maybe I'm wrong.
And really, my old experience with adaptations of video game stuff to board games is the 80s versions of those. I don't know if you Pac-Man's another great example of that. There was the Mario board game where you would move a character across basically the first board of Mario, which was really lame. There was Turtles games that were out there as well, which, video game adaptation that kind of, toes the line a little bit. But I think with the explosion of board games that we've seen, not just video game adaptations, but lately, in probably the last 10 years or so, there's been a big clamor for more and more board game type entertainment. And it's to the point in which it's not just Milton Bradley who's coming out with board games anymore. There's a lot of indie developers out there that are utilizing Kickstarter and all that kind of stuff to create board games. So it's an exciting time, especially when I was a kid. In the 90s, board games were the other thing that you played besides video games. So to bring some of that back, it's like a nostalgic kick as well. So I'm excited. I think that at least giving this a try would be a lot of fun. I would love to be able to do this where, like, if I got a copy of it and you got a copy of it and someone else did, we could stream it,
Oh, yeah,
like
live.
like a webcam. I think that would be super, super cool.
I mean, because people do that with Dungeons and Dragons all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they can do that remotely. I mean, that's obviously a game that you don't have to be in the same area with somebody, because your dungeon master can be in Portland and you can be wherever you're at and I can be wherever I'm at and still have that great experience. But the only problem is you'd have to each individually purchase this, and depending on how much it costs when it comes out. Now, based on what I'm seeing or what I'm hearing, it sounds like this game might cost in the range of $49.99 to $79.99, because some of the board games, they get up there in price.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We bought the Goonies board game. Actually, I got that for my birthday last year, and it's a fun game. It's a nice little turn-based, almost like an RPG where you can level your character up and stuff like that, but you're trying to escape. You can either be the Goonies or the Fratellis. You're trying to escape them and whatnot. And there's a dungeon master who controls the game. And that thing costs like maybe $50-$60.
I'm just thinking of like Chunk levels up to level 4 Truffle Shuffle.
Boo!
Yeah. But he can't do it unless you tell, come on, do it.
If you're going to have your friends all buy a copy of this game, you're all going to get together and log in at the same time and play it over the internet. You know, it's a lot easier way to do that.
I knew this was coming.
Just play the video game.
Next up from Sky News, esports athletes face same level of mental stress as athletes in other sport, study finds. Researchers at the University of Winchester and Chichester, does that sound right? Chichester. It's one of the Chesters, said that improving the well-being of gamers should be made a priority, as it is for other professional sports, including football. The study looked at 313 gamers who either play Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Valorant, or Rainbow Six Siege. Each esport athlete was asked about the stressors they encounter from playing the games. On the whole, they were found to experience similar levels of stress, sleep problems, burnout, social phobia, and anxiety as those competing in physical sports. Antishan Arumanham, one of the authors of the study, said esports athletes face specific demands that vary from those faced by traditional sports athletes. For example, they need to use skilled fine motor coordination while facing a high cognitive workload that includes attention, information processing, and visual-spatial skills. And the lack of an off-season means that there are unique stressors for each esports athlete, which are linked to mental ill health. So what's interesting about this is this actually kind of coincides with some research that I've been familiar with behind neuroscience that talks about this idea of your body's threat responses. And one of the tenets of this information says that physical threats activate the same sections of your brain as emotional ones. So, for example, if you see fire, right, you naturally have an immediate threat response to that to run away. The same thing can happen in really high stress emotional situations as well. So interestingly enough, when we think about that, we think of physical threats being much more of a priority, which they are, but our brain interprets emotional stress in just the same sections. So it kind of matches up with that. So I'm not surprised to see that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure on athletes in like football, basketball, baseball. Mm-hmm. You're making millions of dollars, and this is your livelihood. So the same could be said for these guys with esports. I doubt that these people have other jobs that they go to from a 9 to 5, and then they come home and spend all this time working at video games. They are dedicated to their craft, so much so that, you know, you've got colleges that now have esports programs. So that's just like a sport itself. You go in there, you train, you don't have the physical aspects of like a football player, but you've got the mental, and you've got the strain with the computer on your eyes and your head and headaches and whatnot. I can totally see this being a thing.
Yeah, I honestly don't see how they do it. Like even games that I really, really love, like Mario Kart, after a couple hours, especially if you're playing in the online lobbies with really, really good people, after a while, it's just like, I need a break. I can't do this anymore.
Right.
It's too frustrating, whatever. especially because they're only playing a single game, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Just doing that day in and day out, I would be a wreck. I think it just underscores the need to always take a step back from what you're doing, whether it is video games or traditional sports or anything that occupies a lot of your time. It's good to step back and reorient your perspective in life. That being said, these people still get paid a good living to play video games. And
Absolutely.
nobody feels that sorry for you.
Yeah, but then it becomes work, and that can't be fun after a while. The other analogy is like video game testers. I can't imagine that they want to go home and play the same video game that they were testing all day, because that's work.
No, but if you ask me if I want to be an esports professional to make a living, or if I want to go work in a stupid office, I know which one I would pick.
Office, right?
That's fair. And I will say, I mean, I was an athlete in college, and it is pretty stressful. If you don't perform as an athlete in college, your scholarship could technically be taken away.
Right.
So there's a lot of stress behind that. And I would imagine with esports, knowing that there could be changes to the game, or there are people who are coming up that are way better than you, that are younger. It's all within the same realm.
A risk of sponsorships being taken away.
Yeah, stuff like that. It's pretty intense.
With great height comes great responsibility.
There you go. Great height.
As someone who was too short to get that college scholarship, I still don't feel that bad for you.
Short people got no scholarships. All right, Blue, so why don't we check out our top 3 new releases?
All right, first up is Crusader Kings 3. Platform is the PS5, Xbox Series X and S. Love, fight, scheme, and claim greatness. Determine your noble house's legacy in the sprawling grand strategy of Crusader Kings 3. Death is only the beginning as you guide your dynasty's bloodline in the rich and larger-than-life simulation of the Middle Ages. Moss Book 2, platform is PSVR. As the next game in the franchise, Book 2 builds on the story you started with Quill in the original Moss. In this continuation of the journey, the stakes are higher than ever as Quill works to save the world of Moss and end the merciless rule of the Arcane. And Weird West, out on the PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Discover a dark fantasy reimagining of the Wild West where lawmen and gunslingers share the frontier with fantastical creatures. Survive and unveil the mysteries of the Weird West through the intertwined destinies of its unusual heroes in an immersive sim from the co-creators of Dishonored and Prey. So, anything here you guys are interested in?
I have not gotten involved with a Wild West game in a long time. So, I mean, I never played like Red Dead or any of those. So, Wild West, or Weird West, sorry, not Wild West.
Wild West.
Because there is reimagining of the Wild West, and that's where I was reading at that point. But Weird West sounds interesting to me. That's probably something that's more up my alley than necessarily the other two, because I'm not going to get a PSVR, for one.
Right.
Why not?
Because they're stupid expensive, and I'm going to get seasick or what have you.
Yar, matey.
Yar.
I'm not going to get a PSVR either. I would, if I'm going to get a VR system, it's going to be, unfortunately, it has to be an Oculus, because that's one of the most affordable ones right now. The only downside with that one is that you have to have a Facebook account to use it.
Boo.
Does it do it like the old days where it's like, Donnie just cleared this level on and post stuff for you?
So annoying. Because if you're friends with your boss and he's like, hey, are you working? Yeah, totally working. I'm working on that project. Really? Because it just said you cleared this level on Weird West. Son of a.
So what that really means is you're not using your Oculus to play adult-only games.
No comment there. No thanks. Like to keep my gameplay private. I got to say, I'm in the same boat as Brian. Weird West does look interesting. It's a mashup of Westerns, which, okay, those types of games, not really my speed or style. Mm-hmm. Red Dead Redemption, I couldn't really get into it because transitioning from Grand Theft Auto over to Red Dead Redemption, it seems so damn slow. Like I'm driving around 80 miles an hour in a car around Vice City, listening to some of the hottest 80s tracks. And now I'm on a horse riding about 20 miles an hour. And it just took forever. And granted, it had a great storyline, but just the mechanics, I was like, nah, not really. So not that into Western games.
Blue, what about you?
Yeah, I would like to play the first Moss, but like you guys, I'm not going to get a PSVR ever. So probably Weird West. I don't like Westerns, but, it's got a cool cell shading art style. It's published by Devolver Digital. They usually have quirky games that are fun to play. So if I had to pick one of these three, I would pick one. But honestly, it's kind of an off week.
And just so the patrons at home are listening, or anybody who's listening, we don't have to pick a game that we're going to go out and buy. I mean, I know that Blue buys an insane amount of games.
Hey, you buy an insane amount of games. They're just old.
Oh, you shut your mouth.
She's got you there, man.
She does got me. All right. So let me backtrack a little bit. We both buy a lot of games and continuing to buy these games each week as they're coming out. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to grab this one. Your backlog will never end.
Never.
You're going to be dead and games are still coming into your house that you've ordered.
Tell my wife to finish my saves.
Bury me with my game.
That is an excellent reference there, sir.
Thank you.
Sunset Riders, baby. All right, why don't we jump into our main topic, which is from PlayStation.blog, which says all new PlayStation Plus launches in June with 700 plus games and more value than ever. This June, we're bringing together PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now in an all-new PlayStation Plus subscription service that provides more choice to customers across 3 membership tiers globally. PlayStation Plus Essential provides the same benefits as PlayStation Plus members are getting today, such as 2 monthly downloadable games, cloud storage for saved games, online multiplayer access, $9.99 monthly and $59.99 yearly. PlayStation Plus Extra provides all the benefits from the Essential tier, adds a catalog of up to 400 of the most enjoyable PS4 and PS5 games, including blockbuster hits from our PlayStation Studio catalog and third-party partners. Games in the Extra tier are downloadable for play, $14.99 a month or $9.99 a year. And finally, $99.99 a year. PlayStation Plus Premium provides all the benefits of Essential and Extra tiers, adds up to 340 additional games, including PS3 games available via cloud streaming, a catalog of beloved classic games available in both streaming and download options from the original PlayStation, PlayStation 2, and PSP generations. Time-limited game trials will be also offered in this tier, so customers can try select games before they buy. $17.99 a month or $119.99 a year.
The new Extra and Premium tiers represent a major evolution for PlayStation Plus. With these tiers, our key focus is to ensure that the hundreds of games we offer will include the best quality content that sets us apart. At launch, we plan to include titles such as Death Stranding, God of War, Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, Mortal Kombat 11, and Returnal. We're working closely with our imaginative developers from PlayStation Studios and third-party partners to include some of the best gaming experiences available with a library that will be regularly refreshed. More details to come on the games we'll have on our new PlayStation Plus service. When the new PlayStation Plus service launches, PlayStation Now will transition into the new PlayStation Plus offering and will no longer be available as a standalone service. PlayStation Now customers will migrate over to PlayStation Plus Premium with no increase to their current subscription fees at launch.
Building upon more than 25 years of expertise in gaming innovation, this change to our subscription services highlights our continued efforts to evolve our network services businesses to match our customers' preferences. With the all-new PlayStation Plus, what are you doing?
Sorry. Writing a note.
The words are jerking up and down as I was trying to read them.
When you yelled out, "What are you doing?" I was sipping my beer and I what?
You can see me?
Better put some tape over that webcam there, right?
Right. Jesus. I was like, what are you doing? Oh, sorry.
Right now.
With the all-new PlayStation Plus, we're focused on delivering a compelling game subscription service with curated content from our exclusive PlayStation Studios team and our third-party partners. The newly enhanced PlayStation Plus will enable our fans to discover and engage with more content than ever before and deepen their connection with the PlayStation community through shared experiences. We're providing an early look at our new PlayStation Plus subscription service today, and we'll plan to share more information with you as we get closer to launch. Stay tuned. I have PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus currently. They're $60 a year each. So $5 a month each, put them together is basically $10 a month. So as it says in here, people like me who have those two services will just be switched over to the PlayStation Plus Premium, the top tier, without any increase in cost, which is kind of nice. So up to 340 additional games. So that's a very mysterious number.
Right.
And you have to have the highest tier if you want to get those time-limited game trials on select games. There's so many qualifiers.
That kind of rubs me the wrong way. You know, I have to pay for your top tier in order to get game trials, basically demos of a new game. Why don't you just give that to me at the lowest tier? Why should I be excluded from participating in the demo of this game just because I'm not shelling out any additional money?
It's like the opposite of the Doom model back when they would hand out all that free shareware.
Yeah.
To get people excited.
Yeah, and it certainly worked for them.
Right.
It seems like Sony's strategy here is to say, what do our hardcore fans, what do they want? Great. We'll move that to the highest tier because we know that they will pay extra for it. And we don't have to worry about the people who are doing the lower tiers.
If you're on a lower tier, we're doing you a favor. Here you go. Here's your 2 downloadable games per month.
Like, who would pay $10 for that?
Basically because you want the cloud storage and you want the online multiplayer.
Got it.
Right, which I hate that. I absolutely hate that because when I bought my PS3, guess what? I did not have to pay to play online games like Call of Duty with friends or anything like that. And then all of a sudden, Xbox, I know Xbox 360, you had to have an Xbox subscription account to be able to get online and play games and download games and stuff like that. And that's the one thing that always made me choose PlayStation, the PS3, over the Xbox 360. Then eventually, the PS3 did start charging people. Like you had to have PlayStation Plus in order to play online. And I thought that was so bogus.
Bogus,
man.
Bogus,
you take something that was free and now you're going to be like, well, we're going to need some money for this. Now, I was like, come on, man, really?
Yeah, they've all gone that way. Nintendo was the holdout, but now you have to have the Switch Online if you want to play online with other people.
The other thing I have a problem with is, so it says it advertises the catalog of beloved classic games from the original PlayStation. Why don't you just go out and get a PlayStation Classic, hack it, load it up with the entire catalog of PlayStation games yourselves, and go that route? That would cost you less than, let's say, $40.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand with the ROMs that they have on the PlayStation, on the PlayStation Classic, that would be the same thing that they're going to be offering you from Sony itself. Because I hard pressed to think that they have kept all of the source code from all of these original PlayStation games.
The only problem you run into is that the option that you suggested is technically illegal.
Yeah, there is that, or there's like if you just don't have the technical know how to do it.
You know what, I'm myself don't really have the technical know-how on how to do that. But you know what I do? I go online, I follow an instruction, and it works like a charm.
Uncle Google.
You are right. It's technically illegal, but it's kind of the same thing with emulating like N64, NES games, and Super Nintendo games.
Yep.
If they gave me an option to actually buy those games, I mean, for cheaper prices and whatnot, I would totally do so. Now, for a game like Earthbound, like we talked about last week, I got to pay what, several $100s to go out and buy that game?
Yeah, screw that.
I'm not doing that.
Whoops.
To each their own.
Right.
For me, though, owning it is not just the game. There's a lot more to it. It's shelf candy.
As we have discussed before, Ryan likes the flex.
I do like the flex. So, as I understand, this was kind of PlayStation's response to Microsoft's online service. Is that what you guys gathered from this?
Yeah, basically the main difference, of course, being is that PlayStation is not including their new releases. There are no new games, no day one releases here, which is something that Xbox always is thumping their chest about, and rightly so. They're trying to do what Xbox has done so successfully, but like withholding one of the biggest parts of it.
Right. I mean, and I get it. I understand this move because you want people to go out and actually buy those games. They want to see if people are going to go out and spend the $60 for this game.
$70 now.
Yeah, $70, right. They want to see that.
But honestly, Microsoft is in the second place seat in the console war. Well, maybe even third place.
Are they?
Yeah, with the Switch.
Okay.
So they've got a lot of ground to make up. They can take a few losses in order to bring people in.
Good point.
Well, and for the record, VGCharts.com back in February, they had the numbers listed as PlayStation 5 total sales were 6,700,000 and the Series X and S total sales were 6,200,000.
Oh, no kidding.
So
Okay.
it's closer than you think, closer than in
It's
previous
working,
generations. Yeah.
Yep. And again, on top of that, they're getting PC sales off of this as well. So
Look at what Sony's a powerhouse. All right.
They
Sony has, they had PCs. I think they had laptops, the Sony Vaio. I don't know if that's still a thing. You've got your Sony TVs, you've got your Sony sound equipment. So they've got their hands in everything. So
Giggity.
So it's kind of like Xbox, or I'm sorry, Microsoft. They can take losses. They can do different things, new things. They can try out new things and see what works, what's going to bring in that big revenue stream. Whereas Nintendo just has video games.
they don't care.
Yeah, they don't care.
Nintendo has been around since the freaking 80s, man.
1800s, actually.
1880s. No.
They've
The
been around since the
1980s.
1880s.
The 1980s as far as video games.
I'm going to disagree with you on that, too.
I'm calmed down.
Really, the thing that remains to be seen is obviously Sony is feeling pressure to compete with
Right.
Microsoft's very successful Game Pass, but they are half-assing it, really. So we'll just have to wait and see whether this takes them to whatever goals they're hoping to achieve with this, or if it's a failure and they get rid of it, or if they decide to go all in. Those are the options.
Nice. Blue, with you, since you're going to be grandfathered into this, is there anything in particular that you're excited that you don't have access to right now?
The PSP library is something that I have no experience with, pretty much no experience with. So I'll be interested. And as well, the original PlayStation. I never owned one until very recently, and my library on that is very, very small. So
Sorry.
Right?
So those two ones in particular, I'll be checking out. I'm grandfathered in, so I may as well see what the premium tier has to offer. When it comes time to renew, I don't know if I'll have to see what they have first before I decide whether I want to renew at the premium tier or just go back down to the essential tier, the bottom tier.
Nice.
I will have to say that I was shocked when I learned that you guys did not have a PlayStation 1. The PlayStation 1 has some great titles, especially for like horror games.
That was the generation I skipped. I skipped the N64 PlayStation generation. When those came out, I was like, God, these games are so ugly. I guess I'll
just do something else.
Yeah, video games, and I had a good run. I guess I'll go off. I played sports, learned to drive, did high school things, and then came back to gaming in college.
Okay. All right.
That's my story. All right, before we bring in Professor Ryebread, let's take a quick break to talk about our sponsor.
Gaming History 101 is proudly sponsored by The Elitist Podcast. It's a show where three friends and occasional guests play games about video games, including trivia, game show games, and more. Here is this week's trivia question. Debuting in 1983, the animated TV show Saturday Supercade, featuring rotating segments starring video game characters such as Frogger, Q*bert, Donkey Kong, which legendary comedian provided the voice of Donkey Kong on that series? Tune into the Elitist Podcast this Tuesday to hear the answer. You can find the Elitist Podcast on your favorite podcast platforms, and we'll also have links in the show notes.
I loved Saturday Supercade so much so that I'm now that I'm being reminded of it, that might be my next tattoo.
Really?
Really?
It just brings back a flood of memories once I heard it, and oh my God, I loved it back then.
I've never seen this show.
No, I've never have either.
God. Space Ace, Donkey Kong, Qbert, and even the kangaroo game from what was that game? It was on the Atari.
The Atari Kangaroo game?
Yeah. I think it might have just been called Kangaroo.
Which checks out for Atari.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kangaroo. That's exactly what it was called. They had some of these characters on Saturday Supercade. So, that really it brings me back.
Love it. Thank you for coming, students. Please take your seats. Welcome to Professor Ryebread's Gaming History 101. In today's lesson, we'll be discussing a subject near and dear to my heart as the organizer of many esports events via the RGB High Score Contest. Today, we'll be talking about the early history of gaming competitions. So the question is, why cover this topic? Well, for one, esports are a huge phenomenon today, but came from kind of humble beginnings, which we'll talk about here in a bit. And gamers have since the beginning of gaming sought out to test their skills against other players, making it an important part of gaming history in general. So first things first, both of you have competed in gaming competitions. What about them draws you to participate? So Blue, I'll start with you.
So for me, I usually, if I'm going to participate in a gaming competition, it's because I'm playing for a good cause. Like if it's a stream that is for a charity, or I've done your RGB high scores a couple times, but I wouldn't really call myself somebody who's into competitions.
But I will say, I noticed you do have fun with them.
We get the right people together. Of course, they're fun.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things I love about it, is that it's not just strictly about the competition. Like if you do sporting events, often and you get like the gym class warriors who are really serious about it. With RGB High Score, I don't think I've ever really had attracted that level of person who just absolutely needs to win, is going to be a poor sport about it at the end.
Are you sure?
I beg to differ on that one.
Okay, let me rephrase. I haven't had it a lot. It's the exception, not the rule.
Right.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but Donnie, what about you?
The competition is definitely there. I'm very competitive by nature, and especially with video games, since I've been able to do better and get good at these classic video games now that I'm an adult. It stokes the competitive fire, but also the camaraderie. Yeah. Playing alongside different people, your friends, and having that good natured like competition, like, oh, Davey, hey, I just got this. Well, what's your best shot? And Davey comes back with our friend Davey PGH. He comes back with like, oh, I've got 400,000. You're like, oh, damn it. Okay, let me try one more time. And like, all right, I got 450,000. And you go to sleep and you're like, all right, I think that's going to be enough. And the next thing you know, Davey submits a 600,000. You're like, so it's just it's the good natured trading back and forth between friends. I like that.
And it pushes you to do better at a game or master a game more than you would just by yourself, I think.
Absolutely.
When you guys were going back and forth, if I remember right, it was Thunder Force 4.
Oh, God, don't mention
was the big one.
Mm-hmm.
And that game you can beat and not care about your score, and it's a fun game. And that's what I think most of the time people do, right? But when you add that extra element of competition, it really drives you to explore more of the game, become more familiar with the layout, and try to find out ways to trick or cheat the system in a way to help you get the higher scores. So it's about finding secrets, or you know that you can go this one particular path that most of the time doesn't seem like it's a viable option, but that'll get you more points. So it's a fun way to, I think, experience games, and that's why I love them so much. And I don't really do it myself because I host these, but for me as a host, watching people basically master a game like that is actually really entertaining.
Right. It's funny you said cheat the system.
Well, with it, bend the rules, I guess, is maybe a better example.
They're more like guidelines.
Yes, there we go. Gotcha. All right, but let's actually jump into the history behind video game competitions. And really the earliest one that's known, it took place on October 19th, 1972 at Stanford University for the game Space War, which we've talked about in previous iterations of Gaming History 101. But it was basically one of the first games that was ever created. But basically they had a competition that was known as Intergalactic Space War Olympics.
I'm going to reverb that.
Intergalactic.
Planetary. Intergalactic. But the interesting part is that the competition itself was sponsored by Rolling Stone magazine.
Huh.
Right. It drew 24 players that competed. Ooh. Yeah, watch out now. In 3 different events. They were free-for-all, 1v1, and duos of Space War.
1v1 me, bro.
Maybe that was the first time. It was California, so there's a high likelihood that 1v1 bro was yelled. But the winners of each would receive a year's subscription to Rolling Stone magazine. A gentleman by the name of Slim Tofar, which is an awesome name in its own right. He was the overall winner. He actually won both 1v1 and duos. Of course, no word whether or not he just kept both copies of Rolling Stone or subscription, or he gave it to a friend. No word to that, but I think it would be boring to get 2 copies of Rolling Stone every month. But
you know what I'd do, man? 2 copies of Rolling Stone at the same time.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
So the next notable competition was actually 8 years later in 1980 was the Space Invaders Championship held on by Atari. And it wasn't the arcade version, it was the Atari version. Jeez. So over 10,000 participants would play in this tournament. It was basically 4 players from each of the 4 regions the top 4 players would go on from each of those 4 regions would go on to compete in the finals in New York City. The winner was actually 16-year-old Rebecca Heinemann, who would go on to win the finals and eventually would be a founding member of Interplay Products, which published a lot of games that I really enjoy, including classic rock and roll racing. So thank you, Rebecca.
That name sounds familiar. I think I watched a documentary on
Crackle.
Yep.
They covered that.
Yeah. Rebecca at the time was not Rebecca.
I think she was Robert at the time. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. And actually, I have written here, she's been a huge influence on the gaming history as well as a role model for transgender gamers.
Nice.
Yep.
My a friend and a fellow or former colleague actually was talking about how at the time Space Invaders had the local newspaper come to his house when he was a kid because he was trying to do a Guinness World Record of playing Space Invaders for like a certain period of time. And like they showed up at his house and he was downstairs playing and his dad answered the door and he's like, Dan, hey, somebody's up here for you. And he's like, oh, okay. And sees the news reporter and starts to take him down in his basement. And Dad's like, what? Whoa. What are you doing?
That all sounds like it's on the up and up.
Right. I'm going down to my basement with a strange guy. And this was for Space Invaders. And I think even they like in the St. Louis area had that specific competition for people to go and enter.
That's so awesome.
That'd be a fun article to see if you could find.
Right. I think I will.
Now, moving forward, in the summer of 1981, Walter Day founded the official high score leaderboard through his arcade organization known as Twin Galaxies, which Donnie has a few records on their website.
And they still hold up.
Yep.
How often do you check those to see if you've been beaten?
Every 5 seconds. I mean,
I was going to say.
And then he paused and I was like, this could go either way.
Right.
No, maybe every couple of months.
When's the last time you checked?
A couple of weeks ago.
Do you get emails if somebody were to beat your record?
Now I got to check.
Now he's worried.
I don't know because whenever I took down the Outrun world record, it was maybe a couple days afterwards that the previous world record holder had messaged me and congratulated me on doing so. So I couldn't tell you if you get a notification because mine are still up there.
I've never been beaten, so I wouldn't know.
Right. Come at me, bro.
I'm going to plug in my copy of Outrun. Take it down, buddy.
Do it.
Now, interesting with Walter. Now, yes, he is has less of a reputation nowadays because of a lot of controversies, but Walter was really involved in helping promote video games and even submitted scores to the Guinness Book of World Records. And again, some of those are wrought with controversy, but nonetheless, he was a part of that original desire to make high score competitive gaming a thing. And in 1983, Day and a gentleman by the name of Jim Riley actually founded the U.S. National Video Game Team, where they challenged the players of arcades across the country and attempted to challenge other countries through visits to foreign embassies. And in 86, the team would compete in an event called Incredible Sunday, which had a 3-game competition on the NES, and that actually served as the precursor for the Nintendo World Championships in 1990. Ooh. So without Walter, we may not have had some of the most famous video game challenges out there. So,
or most expensive cards.
Right. We'll get to that.
Can you imagine Walter Day and his crew walking into the local arcade and just stirring shit up?
Just flipping over stools.
Do you think people knew who they were, though?
I don't know, but that would have been hilarious. Like, I got next, bitch, and flips his quarter up at the screen. You're like, whoa, who the hell is that? It's Walter Day, man.
It's like the kids who had the really nice field and uniforms in the Sandlot. They like roll in there.
All right.
You play Donkey Kong like a girl. Wait, what is that supposed to mean?
So speaking of Nintendo World Championships in 1990, it's obviously one of the most notable competitions in gaming history. There's a lot of ephemera that came from this. There's a lot of prestige that came around from the Nintendo World Championships, but it wasn't the first competition that was actually put on by Nintendo. That actually was the Nintendo Challenge Championship in 1989, and it was a celebration of Nintendo's 100-year anniversary. That's right, Donnie. 100 years, not 1980.
It's my ass.
Nintendo World Championships 1990 was held in 29 different cities across the U.S., where there were 3 different age groups, 11 and below, 12 to 17, and 18 and over, where the top 2 scorers would compete for the title of city championship, or city champion, rather. Now, competitors would play 3 different games on specifically made cartridges that would calculate their score. First game was Super Mario Bros., where you were timed to see how quickly you could get to 50 coins. Next game was Rad Racer, where you would race for the best time. And lastly was Tetris, where players would try to get the highest score. And the total time limit for the whole thing was 6 minutes and 21 seconds.
Nice round number.
Right. And that's what I was thinking, too. Like, that's so awkward. The 2 finalists for each city and age group would win a trip to Universal Studios Hollywood for a chance to compete in the World Finals. So the World Finals were held December 7th through the 9th, and Jeff Hansen won the 11 and under division. Thor Ackerlund won the 12 to 17 division, and Robert Whiteman won the over 18. Now, get this, though. Winners of these competitions won $10,000 savings bond,
Ooh.
a 1990 Geo Metro convertible, which I guess Robert was the only one that could drive it.
Right.
Give me one of those.
Right. A 40-inch projection CRT television and a gold Mario trophy. And runners up received $1,000 savings bond and a silver Mario trophy, which, by the way, I don't know if I've ever seen those on eBay or anything. So
I was going to wonder, what are those going for these days?
Oh, it's got to be a lot, especially considering there's only 3 of them out there.
Right.
Maybe not so much with the Geo Metro convertible. Maybe they'll still go for so much. All the players, however, were kind of allowed to keep the specialty made carts, which were numbered and are now basically rare collector's items fetching thousands of dollars. But, there's a romanticized look at Nintendo World Championships 1990 because it was really the first big, competition. It was highlighted in video game magazines. There was a version of that in the movie The Wizard. So there were all of these kind of excitements around it. People knew about what was happening, even if they weren't at the live events. So there's a lot behind that. But even after that, Nintendo tried to kind of catch the same fire with it. Didn't necessarily get as much hype as they did for the original 1990 competition, but they did sponsor Campus Challenge 1991-92 and Power Fest 94. And actually did a revival of the World Championships in 2015, which I would have loved to have been a part of. But
same.
Yeah.
So they actually tried to do that at the Midwest Gaming Classic that I attended in November of last year. They recreated the Nintendo World Championships by playing Super Mario Brothers, the fastest to 50 coins, with the controller on the Switch. Then they moved you over to a PC to play Rad Racer with a keyboard.
Oh,
What?
And I was like, okay, all right, I can do this. And I got a pretty damn good time on Super Mario Brothers getting 50 coins, and then moved over to Rad Racer. I'm just like, trying to do it with my two fingers on a keyboard. I'm just like, okay, this feels so alien. Like,
was it AWSD?
It was A and D, and I can't remember if you use W to go forward. I know weird. A and D were left and right, and then it just totally threw me off. My kids tried to participate in it; they couldn't really get. I mean, my oldest was getting it down, but I think if we all had a controller, we probably could have all moved past Rad Racer. There were a few people that did it, but I could not do it for.
So it wasn't
keyboard.
just you; it was the whole competition.
Correct.
That's rough.
I'm surprised they didn't just grab a reproduction of the NWC 1990. They're not that expensive. They go for about $100.
Yeah, I can't answer that. I don't know why.
You know what's weird too is there's something. So one of the ways in which you can tell it's a legit Nintendo World Championships cartridge is that second player or the second controller is what starts it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So if you're at a store, you have to plug it in to know.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, 100% you do. So to kind of sum things up, though, competitions in video games have been the driving force to really kind of keep this hobby alive, in my opinion. And esports competitions today draw large crowds, and people can make a comfortable living off of being a part of one of these teams. So even though it came from humble beginnings, it has evolved over time. I'm glad that competitive gaming is a thing. It's brought me a lot of joy over the years, and I can't wait to continue to be a part of this esports community. And yay.
Agreed.
Yay.
I will say, if there are any esports teams out there looking for an aging retro player who has several world records underneath his belt, I'm open.
As long as you can podcast on Wednesdays.
Yeah. How's your Rainbow Six Siege game?
Oh, God. I haven't touched that game in a couple of years.
You're not really selling yourself very well.
You're at the top of the resume list and just went.
Yeah. Trash, man.
We'll call you.
Don't call us. We'll call you.
Yep.
All right, folks. Well, thank you for attending today's lesson. Big thank you to esportsforgamers.weebly.com, highscoresports.com, and Brian Carnell for the information in today's lesson. Just a reminder, if you have any ideas for a story you'd like to hear, send us a message at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com, and we might just feature your suggestion. Thank you for listening to episode 15 of Gamers Week Podcast, and a big thank you to the Retro Game Club Podcast and the Elitist Podcast for sponsoring this episode. Don't forget to check out their links in the show notes. If you want to connect with Gamers Week, follow us on Twitter at GamersWeekPC, email us at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com, visit our merch store at gamers-week-podcast.creator-spring.com, or if you want to do it the easy way, follow the link in the show notes. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/gamersweek. Finally, since you made it all the way to the end of the episode, please leave us a rating and a review to let us know how we did. We really do value your feedback. While you're there, consider subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Oh.
What?
What was that?
Hell?
Let's go, boy.
Oh, clearly it was Goat Boy.
Right. That didn't sound like a goat initially.
Not from where you come from. I don't don't even know what that
I'm not
means.
gonna touch that. Yeah, I don't know either.